Hello BookTube, it's Louise the Big Head Bookworm. Lovely to see you. Hope you're well. Hope you're having a good day wherever it is you are and whatever it is you're doing. Welcome back. Welcome back to this new series of books that I have thought, I quite fancy reading that. So part 1 is already out, and that is 6 fiction books that along the way I have thought, I quite fancy reading that. So these are non-fiction. Yes. We're going to take a break from fiction and we're going to look at some of the non-fiction books. And the first one out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, possibly 7, has been on my radar for years and I've never seen it. It's always one of those ones that when I go back and I think, do I actually want to read this? I go, yes, I do want to read this. I have a plastic wand in my hand. So I've got a notebook here which has got one of my lists in, and it has a plastic wand attached to it because it's a magical notebook. And I don't want to use it the other way around because then I might start casting spells. But I am fiddling with it. I'll put it down so you can't see me doing that. So yes, this is a book that has been on my lists for ages, and every time I've thought, do I really want to read this? And then when I read the back of it and think about it, I go, yes, I do. And then it seems to kind of go away from me again. But I am going to read this at some point, and it is called Spirit Walker. Messages from the Future by Hank Wesselman. Have you heard of it? So I've got the product description here, and I've tried to move it so that I'm not looking all the way down as I was in my last video. I'm trying to move it so that I am more presenting to you with my wand. I'm about to tell you a most unusual story, a chronicle of something that happened to me while I was living on the flank of an active volcano on the island of Hawaii. I'm not saying that correctly, is it? There's a different way of saying it that you're supposed to say it. This is the astonishing true story of an anthropologist's quest into a spiritual world of magic, mysticism and meaning. And it is called Spirit Walker, Messages from the Future. I have no idea where I heard about this book. Honestly, I think it was 2014, 2015 that I reheard about it. So I've heard about it previously to that, and then I reheard about it then, and I thought, no, and I do want to read it, and I put it on my list, and for some reason, I don't think I've ever actually seen it in kind of a bookshop. I've got hair right there in my eye line. There we go. Thank you very much. Got a lot of hair, but that one was just was getting to me. So it's got so I've seen a lot of these books and thought, oh yes, I'll get it at some point. And you know, the ones that I do, that kind of the more unusual books, I've had in my awareness for a while, and then I see them like, oh yes, that's great, I will get that. But this one, I don't think I've ever actually seen it, and it never seems to get any cheaper. I think it's quite old. Let's have a look. Let me see if I can, by not looking down. I have an urge to look down, but I won't. 1998. So that's only 21 years. It's not that old. But it's an American title as well, so that could well be the reason why I've not seen it around. But that's Spirit Walker, Messages from the Future by Hank Wesselman. The second book is The Last Pope by Robert Howells. So, I saw a documentary on It's History 2, which is part of the History Channel that we have on our satellite Sky TV, and it was on history, and it was called The Last Pope, and it was 2 hours. I really enjoyed it, and it was about how there is a prophecy. I think a cat's knocking on the door. No man. It was about a prophecy that, from a monk many years ago. I mean, I want to say kind of nearly 1,000 years ago, the Archbishop of Armagh, so he's an Irish prophet, later canonised as Saint Malachi. Saint Malachi, that's what it was. Made a series of prophecies that were hidden in the Vatican for 400 years, and he gave predictions that gave clues to the identities of the 109 popes from medieval times to present day, including the final pope, who would oversee the end of the papacy and the fall of the Roman Church. So these prophecies by Saint Malachi were hidden, and then they became known about again. Rediscovery of these prophecies in the 16th century, and reading. There is a theory that you could say who all the popes are, and that the last pope is our current pope, is the chap in St. Peter's. So our current pope, St. Francis, is the last one. Some people say, reading about these prophecies. And so I quite fancy reading this book because I really enjoyed the documentary. I had heard of these prophecies, but I don't know them, don't know an awful lot about them, let's be honest. But I'm quite fascinated by it. And I do love kind of papacy books about the papacy, because I like thrillers that are set, and I like things about the history of it. So that really caught me. I thought that would be a good one. So that's The Last Pope by Robert Howes. I have no idea if it's going to be any good. Talking about Pope books, papacy books that I am interested in. Another book that was mentioned was John Thavis. How do we say that? John Thavis? The Vatican Diaries, a behind-the-scenes look at the power, personalities and politics at the heart of the Catholic Church. So this is much more of a straight non-fiction book about the Vatican, really, and how it's put together, and the kind of the idea of the power and the politics and the religion. So I thought that sounded quite interesting. So again, these aren't ones that I'm going to kind of rush out and buy, but both of those, especially The Last Pope, I thought sounded quite interesting. So I don't know how you feel about this. Taking a slightly different title. So we've done Messages from the Future, and then Messages from the Past. See what I did there? This is again about messages, but it's kind of, I can't remember why or where I heard about this book. It's called With the End in Mind, Dying, Death and Wisdom in the Age of Denial. It's a jolly book, I think. I think it's going to be laugh a minute, laugh a page. This is by Catherine Mannix. Where, oh where did I hear about this? In this unprecedented book, the palliative medicine pioneer, Dr. Catherine Mannix, explores the biggest taboo in our society and the only certainty we all share. Death. Yes. So I don't really know when would be a good time to read this. But it is a subject that is fascinating. I really like the Caitlin Doherty books. Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, or Smoke Gets in the Eyes, isn't it? Smoke Gets in the Eyes by Caitlin Doherty. I've got another one of her books downstairs to read. I have read one or two books, well not quite a few, but one or two books about the funeral business. Some good, some not so good. So I do quite fancy reading some more about that, and it's a fascinating story. In the past, and I'm talking here quite a few years ago, I read some books by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who's very well known about talking about wanting to break the taboo of death, and what to do with kind of the care of dying. That's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, The Wheel of Time. I read that many years ago and found it profoundly moving and very fascinating. So I do have an interest in that kind of thing, so that's probably why it's on my list. So I shall, it's not one I'm going to rush towards, but it could be an interesting one. Let me know if anybody's read it, because that would be quite fascinating. Completely different, but something I love is true crime, and I heard about this mystery on Case File. So if you like podcasts, it's a free podcast. I get mine through iTunes, but I'm sure it's available on other. I know it's available on TuneIn, for example, and it's Case File. I don't know what number this was, but it was about the Phillip Island murder, and there were 2 episodes. There was one where they talked to the author, who is Vicky Petratis. That looks about right, doesn't it? Vicky Petratis and Paul Daly. Two of them. Two people wrote it. It's called The Phillip Island Murder. It's an unsolved murder. It's a murder and a missing persons, and it sounds fascinating. And there are two episodes of this podcast. One was just kind of a straight narration of what had happened and what the mystery was, and I think it refers back to this book. And then there was a kind of a bonus episode where they interviewed the author, and the way she spoke about it, this is the first book she ever wrote, and she's kind of pulled into it through her own fascination as to what the story is. So it's The Phillip Island Murder by Vicky Petratis. I could say Petratis. And Paul Daly. So yes, that's a true crime book that I really quite fancy getting. I think I'd have to order it in. I don't think it's one that I'm gonna find anywhere, but it might be good. It looks a lovely cover as well. Two more. Life of the Beloved and Our Greatest Gift by Henri J.M. Newland. Let me see if I can find this. There it is. So yeah, those are two classics. So Life of the Beloved / and Our Greatest Gift by Henri J.M. Newland. I don't know how to pronounce that. Right, so he is one of the 20th century's greatest spiritual writers. The real work of prayer is to become silent and listen to the voice that says good things about me. This book brings together two of his most inspirational pastoral works. Life of the Beloved asks how one can live a spiritual life in a completely secular nature. That sounds interesting. And Our Greatest Gift is a meditation on dying. Ooh, I see a bit of a theme. So I really like Danielle Laporte, and I find her interesting and inspirational, and a very interesting lady. And I have listened to her audiobook last year, White Hot Truth, and really enjoyed it. And she was doing a list of books that she has by the side of her bed, or that she has read recently that she really enjoyed. I can actually remember where I heard about this one. And she mentioned Life of the Beloved, and then I found this edition that has both of them in. So they will be a fascinating spiritual read. As you know, I read spiritual books all the time. I read things about spirituality and different types of thoughts, and how we create our reality and the different perceptions of reality. I'm fascinated in that, and I find it very interesting and inspiring, and wonderful things to meditate on and think about and feel about. So I think that would be interesting. I think he comes from a Christian point of view. I think it is a Christian thought, but it is written not as... I think he comes from that kind of lineage of a Christian spiritual writer, I believe. But it sounds a fascinating thing, and I'd really like to read that. So that's that. And the last one, I can see there is a bit of a theme with this, but this is not spiritual. Well, it could be spiritual. I don't know. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Is Stiff. The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers by Mary Roach. I've never read any Mary Roach. I know, wrong. I should read some Mary Roach. She does deep dives about particular subjects, and she really does go deep dive into a subject, and she finds out all the information that she can about it and presents these as a book. So she's kind of, investigative writer is how I would put it. And I thought this would be a good one. She's done one about the military, I believe, the American military. And she's done one about... I can't remember what her other ones are about. Let's see if I can find any of them. Here we go. Stiff. It's a great cover as well, isn't it? So she does, as I say, she does deep dives into... What other ones does she do? Go on, give me a couple of... Was one of them called Roach? Nope, that's her, Mary Roach. Bum, bum, bum. No, it's not going to give me a list of the other ones. Oh, Bonk. The Curious Coupling of Sex and Science. I say. No, I think I'll go for this one first. But yes, I'm sure she has done one about the American military system, I think. But apparently she's absolutely fascinating. I'd really like to read her books, and this is the one that interested me. Probably I saw it after reading Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Caitlin Doherty. It probably was one of those kind of down that list. I used to listen to Book Riot. Do you ever listen to Book Riot? I used to listen to their podcasts, and they were always going on about Mary Roach, and so I think in somewhere in my head I've got it implanted that she would be a good author for me. And there we go. Those are the 7 books that I have thought over the last couple of years. I've thought, oh, I really fancy reading that. And I look forward to getting to them at some point, whenever it may be. But they're on my list at the moment. This has been lovely, BookTube, and I look forward to speaking to you again.